Watching Newsfeed AM, let's pick up from the Pretoria High Court now. Another police witness is testifying at the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial in Pretoria. Sergeant Mlungisi Mthethwa was one of the first officers to arrive at the crime scene. Our reporter Linda Mnisi following proceedings there for us. He speaks to us now. Linda, good morning to you. A quick recap of what the officer has told the court so far. Just the key highlights.
Okay, well, you'll remember that prior to Sergeant Thabo Mosia arriving, which was literally 4 hours later after the crime scene or the shooting had happened, he found people at that particular scene. But now we're hearing from the officers who arrived first at the scene, and these are the people that received the complaint at the time or on the day of Senzo Meyiwa's shooting. He points out the time in which they received this particular call, saying it was at around 7 minutes to 9 o'clock, and that there had been a shooting which was in progress at the time. He said they then were given the address. I think among some of the key issues was that he was then given the address, and it took him about 8 minutes. He says it was less than 10 minutes to arrive. It was very close to the Khumalo home, which is in Fosloras in the Mzamo section, Kutranong Street. And there he found a gentleman by the name of Temba. And this Temba identified himself only as the uncle of the occupants of the house. He says they then went into that particular house where they were not looking for anything in particular, because this said Temba had not really had information about what exactly had happened. The house was locked. He says they entered through the kitchen door. You'll remember this is also the allegation or one of the critical issues here, how the suspects are said to have entered the house. He says he entered through the kitchen door, and because they were not looking for anything in particular, what they could see or pick up at the time were 2 cans of alcohol, which were situated in the dining room area. You'll remember it takes us back to the pictures that we have already seen in court around where exactly the blood stains were, where Senzo Meyiwa was shot, and why there were no blood stains at that particular point. But he says they then went to the hospital, where they found a BMW. The occupants of that particular BMW, one in fact of the ladies who was seated in the passenger seat, is the one that opened and then inquired about what exactly they had come there for. They were taken into this hospital where, they were taken by a nurse who then showed them where the victim, being Senzo Meyiwa, was. He points out to the court where exactly he was shot at, pointing at that particular chest. They then left, going back to the house. This is where the crime scene was, and he makes reference of a certain Makumalo who had identified herself as the owner of that particular house. He says when they arrived at the house, she then relayed the story. So some critical really points that come out, given how these police officers entered the house, leaving the crime scene, going to the hospital. He says when they already left, there were members of the public who were outside, and those members of the public showed them where I'll call them suspects at this point, had run to 2 people who were running to the direction of the park, where they inquired really but could not find anything. So it really points to certain issues around not only time, but what happened, them entering the house, them leaving the house and coming back and not inquiring exactly what had transpired in that particular house. So at this point we're still hearing from him. He says this call, when he received it, he was with his colleague Sergeant Matebula, who we understand is also expected to take this stand and explain exactly what their role is.
All right, Linda Mnisi, let's leave that update there. Also, we have learnt through the prosecutor that the very Mr. Khumalo that the officer is speaking about is expected to be called, including one of those neighbors who had pointed in the direction that the suspects had ran. Thank you very much for the time being, Linda Mnisi, giving us the update there from the court. Let's